Mindfulness is not merely a practice, but a rebellion against the tyranny of the ego, a quiet revolution for the peace of mind.
Have you ever wondered what's driving the choices you make every day? Why do some situations make you feel competitive, while others leave you feeling content or even complacent? At the core of many of our experiences is a little three-letter word that packs a big punch: ego. Today we look into this concept, exploring what it is, how it affects us, and the profound impact it could have on the world if we learn to control it better. The term ego is often thrown around in casual conversation, but its psychological and spiritual implications run deep. In psychology, the ego is considered part of our personality that mediates between our primitive desires and our moral standards. But in spiritual contexts, the ego is often seen as the part of us that defines itself separately from others and the world, sometimes to our detriment. It's the voice that tells us we are distinct, separate, and often, in some way, superior or inferior to those around us. Understanding our ego can be the first step toward improving not only personal well-being, but also how we interact on a global scale. This exploration could very well show us how diminishing the ego can lead to increased harmony and understanding. In various aspects of life, from interpersonal relationships to international relations. To truly grasp the influence of ego, it's essential to look back at how it has been perceived throughout history. Cultures around the world have long recognized the concept of ego, each interpreting it through their own philosophical and spiritual lenses. For instance, ancient Greek philosophers like Socrates and Plato debated the notion of self and the importance of self-knowledge, which involves understanding one's ego. Plato suggested that understanding oneself would lead to better governance and, ultimately, a more just society. In Eastern philosophies such as Buddhism, the reduction of ego is seen as crucial to achieving enlightenment. The Buddhist concept of anatta, or non-self, teaches that the idea of an individual, separate self is an illusion that causes suffering. Reducing ego here is not about diminishing one's value, but about seeing life and our interactions more clearly and compassionately. These historical insights are not just academic, they help us understand how our approach to ego influences current societal structures and individual behaviors. By examining the roots of these ideas, we can begin to see the threads that connect past beliefs with today's world, and possibly find ways to weave a new social fabric that holds a smaller space for the ego. As we reflect on these historical perspectives, we see a pattern emerge. Societies that emphasize community and collective well-being often caution against letting the ego run unchecked. Whether through philosophy, religion, or cultural practices, there has been a consistent acknowledgement that a strong, unchecked ego can lead to conflict, injustice, and inequality. By revisiting these perspectives, we not only understand the ego's role through ages, but also gather wisdom that can help us address the modern challenges we face. These challenges, deeply influenced by our egos, manifest in various forms, from personal conflicts to global crises, and understanding them through the historical lens can offer valuable lessons. In today's society, the concept of ego is more relevant than ever, especially with the rise of digital technologies and social media. These platforms, while offering unparalleled opportunities for connection and knowledge sharing, also foster an environment where the ego can thrive unchecked. The constant drive for likes, shares, and followers can intensify our focus on self-image and personal achievement over community well-being and authentic connections. This obsession isn't limited to social media. It permeates many aspects of modern life, including consumer culture, where success is often measured by the accumulation of wealth and material goods. Here, the ego can lead to a cycle of consumption that disregards the environmental and social costs of unbridled consumerism. Politically, too, ego can be seen in the divisive rhetoric and polarization that characterize much of current global discourse, where leaders often prioritize personal or nationalistic ambitions over collaborative, global solutions. The impact of ego in these contexts is profound. It shapes how societies are structured and how individuals interact within them. By encouraging a culture of competition and superiority, the ego can undermine social cohesion and contribute to a range of societal issues, from inequality to environmental degradation. Recognizing this can be uncomfortable, but it is a necessary step if we are to address the root causes of many global challenges. Understanding the psychological impacts of ego is crucial for personal development and societal harmony. Psychologists have long studied how the ego influences human behavior, linking it to a wide array of emotional and relational difficulties. For instance, an inflated ego can lead to behaviors characterized by arrogance and an inability to empathize, while a fragile ego might result in insecurity and defensiveness. Both states can cause significant strain on personal relationships and lead to a distorted view of oneself and others. The constant pursuit of ego-driven goals, such as status and recognition, can lead to stress, anxiety, and depression. These mental health issues are often exacerbated by the societal pressure to stand out or be seen as special, feeding into a cycle where the ego both causes and is reinforced by psychological distress. Therapeutic approaches that focus on understanding and integrating the ego suggest that individuals can find greater peace and contentment through self-awareness and ego moderation. Techniques such as mindfulness and cognitive behavioral therapy are used to help individuals recognize their ego-driven thoughts and behaviors, providing them with tools to foster healthier, more balanced lives. In understanding these psychological impacts, we can see how the ego not only affects individual well-being, but also how individuals interact with each other. A society with lower ego-driven behavior could promote deeper, more empathetic relationships and a greater sense of community, leading to more collaborative and less conflict-driven interactions. By examining the role of ego from both historical and modern perspectives and understanding its psychological impacts, we are better equipped to consider how reducing the ego's influence could indeed save the world. As we continue, we will delve deeper into how this profound shift could be achieved, exploring both ancient wisdom and modern science in the pursuit of a more ego-less global society. The quest to understand and minimize the ego has been central to many spiritual and philosophical traditions around the world. These teachings often suggest that reducing the ego leads to a clearer view of reality, enhanced relationships, and a more profound sense of peace and contentment. In spiritual traditions like Buddhism, the reduction of ego is considered essential for achieving enlightenment. This philosophy teaches that the ego creates a delusion of separation, a false dichotomy between self and other. By transcending the ego, one can experience the true interconnected nature of all things, leading to compassion and a desire to alleviate suffering in others. Stoicism, a school of philosophy that originated in ancient Greece, provides a similar perspective, though framed through the lens of logic and personal discipline. Stoics advocate for the control of one's reactions to external events, essentially controlling the ego's responses. They argue that true freedom comes from detachment from our desires and fears, the domains often ruled by the ego. These teachings are not mere philosophical musings. They offer practical approaches to living that can lead to significant personal and social transformations. By accepting these principles, individuals can lead lives characterized by greater emotional resilience, fewer conflicts, and a deeper sense of fulfillment, qualities that could profoundly impact the broader society. Examining real-life examples of ego reduction provides concrete evidence of its potential benefits. Various communities and individuals around the world have accepted practices that focus on minimizing the ego, with notable results. For instance, certain educational programs have integrated mindfulness and reflective practices into their curricula, encouraging students to observe their thoughts and feelings without attachment. Essentially, practices that help reduce the ego. These programs have reported improvements in student behavior, enhanced empathy, and increased academic performance, suggesting that such practices can cultivate a more cooperative and compassionate environment. Another example can be found in corporate settings, where some companies have adopted leadership models that emphasize humility and service rather than authority and dominance, which are often ego-driven. These companies often experience lower employee turnover, higher satisfaction, and better teamwork, pointing to the effectiveness of reducing ego at an organizational level. These case studies illustrate that when individuals work on reducing their ego, the benefits can ripple out, influencing families, workplaces, and communities. They offer a glimpse of how the broader adoption of such practices could lead to significant societal benefits, including more harmonious relationships and collaborative, sustainable communities. As we move forward, we'll explore scientific perspectives that support these observations, providing a deeper understanding of how ego reduction impacts human behavior and societal outcomes. We'll delve into neuroscience and psychological research that explains why practices that reduce the ego can lead to healthier, more fulfilled lives, and by extension, a more harmonious world. In this journey through spiritual insights and real-world applications, we continue to build the case for how understanding and mitigating the ego is not just a personal challenge, but a global imperative. By reducing the ego, we not only enhance our own lives, but potentially usher in a new era of global cooperation and peace. As we explore these themes further, we remain focused on the practical implications of these ideas, aiming to inspire actionable change in our viewers and their communities. While spiritual and philosophical teachings have long advocated for the reduction of ego, modern science provides us with empirical evidence supporting these concepts. Research in psychology and neuroscience has begun to unpack how ego affects our brains and behaviors, offering fascinating insights into the tangible benefits of ego reduction. Neuroscientific studies have shown that certain practices known to reduce ego, like meditation and mindfulness, can actually alter brain structures. For instance, regular meditation is associated with decreased activity in the default mode network of the brain, which is associated with self-referential thoughts and mind-wandering, often considered hallmarks of the ego. These changes not only enhance focus and emotional stability, but also decrease the levels of stress and anxiety, common consequences of a hyperactive ego. Psychological research complements these findings by exploring how reducing ego can lead to improved interpersonal relationships and increased personal well-being. Studies have found that individuals with lower levels of egocentric behavior are more likely to exhibit empathy and altruism, traits that are crucial for societal cohesion and mutual respect. These scientific insights are vital because they provide a bridge between ancient wisdom and modern understanding, illustrating how reducing the ego can lead to healthier, more adaptive ways of living that benefit individuals and communities alike. This fusion of historical perspective and scientific evidence creates a compelling argument for accepting ego reduction in our daily lives. Despite the clear benefits of reducing the ego, the process is not without its challenges. The ego is an entrenched part of our psychology, shaped by both evolutionary pressures and cultural influences. It serves as our social armor, protecting our self-esteem and helping us navigate complex social hierarchies. But, when left unchecked, it can lead to behaviors and attitudes that isolate us and exacerbate conflict. One of the major challenges is self-awareness. Recognizing when the ego is influencing our thoughts and actions can be difficult, as these patterns are often deeply ingrained. Societal structures frequently reward ego-driven behavior, such as the pursuit of status, power, and material wealth, reinforcing these tendencies. Cultural and social barriers also play a significant role. In many cultures, behaviors driven by ego, such as assertiveness and individual achievement, are highly valued. Proposing a shift towards reducing ego can be perceived as a threat to these cultural norms, making it a sensitive topic for discussion and implementation. These challenges are not insurmountable. With increased awareness and education on the benefits of ego reduction, along with practical tools and community support, individuals can begin to make meaningful changes. It requires a collective effort to shift cultural values towards more cooperative and less egocentric paradigms. But the potential benefits for global harmony and cooperation are immense. While the journey towards reducing ego is fraught with challenges, the path is well illuminated by both ancient teachings and modern science. The next sections of our exploration will focus on the global impact of reduced ego, hypothesizing how a shift in this fundamental aspect of human psychology could reshape our world for the better. We will delve into possible futures enriched by cooperation and diminished conflict, offering a hopeful vision of what we can achieve together as a global community. Imagine a world where the collective ego has diminished. What changes might we see? The potential global impact of reduced ego is profound and multifaceted, affecting everything from international politics to environmental policies and economic systems. In the area of governance, a reduction in ego could lead to more collaborative and less confrontational international relations. Leaders driven less by personal ambition and nationalistic pride, and more by a genuine commitment to global well-being, could more effectively address shared challenges, such as climate change, global health issues, and economic disparities. This shift could facilitate international agreements and cooperative efforts, previously stalled by competing egos and conflicting interests. Economically, a decrease in ego-driven consumption could lead to a more sustainable economy. Consumer behaviors would likely shift from status-driven consumption to more mindful and environmentally friendly practices. Companies would be motivated, not just by profit, but by their role in a sustainable and equitable supply chain, leading to business models that prioritize long-term societal well-being over short-term gains. Environmental efforts would also benefit significantly from a global reduction in ego. With less emphasis on economic expansion at the expense of the environment, more sustainable practices could be adopted widely. This would not only help in combating climate change, but also in preserving biodiversity and ensuring that natural resources are used responsibly and ethically. As we conclude our exploration of how ego death could save the world, it's clear that this is more than a philosophical or spiritual idea. It's a practical pathway to a more harmonious and sustainable future. The reduction of ego can lead to a transformation in individual behaviors, societal norms, and global policies. But how do we achieve this? It starts with awareness. Each of us needs to become more aware of how our own ego shapes our perceptions and behaviors. We can adopt practices like mindfulness, meditation, and reflective thinking to better understand and regulate our egos. Educational systems can support this by incorporating emotional intelligence and mindfulness into curriculums. Second, we need to encourage and promote cultural shifts that value community, collaboration, and collective well-being over individual achievement and competition. This can be supported through media, legislation, and social initiatives that reward cooperative and altruistic behaviors. It's about community and support. Change is challenging, especially when it involves deep-seated aspects of our psychology like the ego. Building communities that understand and support ego reduction can provide the necessary encouragement and resources for individuals to sustain these changes.